Following the tragic events that occurred in Christchurch, New Zealand on Friday, the Australian football community is deeply saddened and sends its love and sympathy to everyone affected by this tragedy. In memory of those who have lost their lives and as a symbol of inclusion and tolerance, please stand for a moment's silence. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
And of course, all of our thoughts are with those in New Zealand, and particularly the families and friends of the victims that died in that awful terrorist attack on Friday. So let's take a check on the team news for today's match, starting with the home side. Just the one change for Sydney FC from the side that started in the Asian Champions League midweek. That is the return of Reza Gushanajan to the starting 11. That's at the expense of Alex Brosk. Josh Brillante still not considered, so Paulo Retre continues in midfield. De Jong and De Silva still not ready to return. Adam Lafondra scored 3 goals in the 2 games against City so far this season. And 3 changes for City. Nathaniel Atkinson, one of 3 players away with the Olyroos. Curtis Good drops down to the bench. Florent Berenguer not a part of the matchday squad. Harrison Delbridge is back after injury, but Schenkeveld and Richie Delat from suspensions. Jamie McLaren has 5 goals from his first 4 matches in City colours. In fact, he scored all of their last 5. Mitch Austin looking to add to his 2 substitute appearances for Sydney FC, and 16-year-old Yaya Dukali included for City, along with Australian under-19 goalkeeper James Delianov, as Mark Birighitti is unwell. Well, so much for the hashtag Sydney is sky blue, more like dank and wet in New South Wales this week, particularly today. Temperatures 21 degrees. That's not the problem, it's the rainfall. The pitch will be heavy.
During the match, video assistance referees will be in
Steve Corrigan having to deal with a few off-field issues in the last couple of weeks, most notably Josh Brillante's impending move to Korea, and of course the announcement of Aaron Calver's switch to Western United, which didn't go down too well in sky blue circles. There's Warren Joyce. His team hasn't played since March the 3rd, but he reckons he'd rather be in Sydney's situation and having had the 2-week break. We'll see if that theory holds water, no pun intended, this afternoon. Referee is Sean Evans, the Melbourne Brickie, taking charge of his 88th A-League game. And the VAR in the warm and dry of the cave in Sydney is Chris Griffiths-Jones, if required. So all set to go in Leichhardt. Sydney's in a west, and it is Melbourne City in their change strip who get us underway, kicking from right to left. Not so lovely Leichhardt today, and a fixture that's not been too kind to Melbourne City in recent years. Do you reckon that will change today, Robbie Slater?
Well, the conditions are obviously going to play a part, but it's a big game for them. They're just clinging on to 6th position. Well, Newcastle did them a favour last night by losing. This is earlier in the day when it looked like the game would be called off, but that rain sort of dissipated somewhat, and the game was deemed Well, the pitch was deemed good enough for the game to continue. I had a walk on it before coming upstairs, and it did seem okay. I mean, it is heavy, there's no doubt about it. But City, 4 points ahead of Newcastle. They're certainly not there yet, so they need some points.
As do Sydney if they're to keep tabs on Perth Glory and keep them honest at the top of the table. Here's Eugene Galekovic, who's made one or two big mistakes over the last couple of weeks. Would have been interesting had Mark Birighitti been well today, whether it might have been a switch in goals, but he continues. And this is Ryan Grant looking to hang it up towards Gushanajad at the back post. Neatly controlled by Milos Ninkovic, as is his want. Bringing Michael Zullo into the action. O'Neill off the head of Richie Delat. And that's a trip on Wallen. Sydney will get the free kick, and an interesting record at stake as Melbourne City go for a speculator with the whistle long since having gone, which could have got them into trouble. But that's a record at stake today, Robbie, that you've held for 32 years.
That's a long time.
The only player to score in 5 consecutive games, the first 5 for a new club. Jamie McLaren could equal that today.
Yeah, and we wish him well. Do you believe that? No, it's remarkable what he's done, and he scored against all the top teams as well. So,
meantime, bit of defending for City to do. Caceres to sweep it in, and behind it goes off Jacopo La Rocca. Game's first corner.
Yeah, and Sydney FC, you were talking about them. Well, with victory back in winning form last night, they're only a point ahead, so we know that first position is going to be difficult, but the top 2 is very important in the Hyundai A-League.
Let's see if they can get off to a flying start. Corner tap short by Caceres. Oh, and it's across the face. And Eugene Galekovic drops gratefully on the ball. Could have gone anywhere, that, really.
I'm not sure who was sliding in, but certainly Grant went to the near post, and then it just... a tangle of legs in the middle of the 6-yard box. Galekovic very relieved to be able to collect that.
I think Ben Wallen might have been one of them. Ninkovic. City's last win over Sydney FC back in season 15-16, a 3-0 home win. Hat-trick by Bruno Fornaroli on that particular day. Chested down by Gushanajad. Nice touch by Lafondra. Looks for the return for Ninkovic. Zullo steaming in. And puts it in the Keith Barnes stand.
Yeah, takes the shot option when really, in these conditions as well, great chance to slide that across the face of the box. So one-touch football there. Combination, Gushanajad and Adam Lafondra chested down. Cushions this one, and Ninkovic with the perfect weight on this one. And for Melbourne City today, it's about matching up around the park as well. Those little battles in the middle of midfield. Retray in there. Of course, you did mention Brillante looks to be gone.
Here's Rezo Gushanajad, who started on the bench against Kawasaki Frontale during the week. Came on second half. Has been struggling with a slight neck injury. O'Neill. Schenkerveld taking control. Harrison Delbridge, who's been struggling with that groin injury sustained in Newcastle a couple of weeks back. Back in the fray today.
Back 3 for City with Schenkerveld, La Rocca, Delbridge, Jamison on the left, and Richie Delat in a higher position on the right-hand side.
It's so important for City to have Delat and Schenkerveld back, 2 key players for Warren Joyce. I know they did all right without them against Perth, didn't they? They were 2-0 up at half-time. They weren't able to see the job through. It's a late comeback by the current league leaders. Swept out by Griffiths towards Richie Delat. Kieran Backus advancing forward, finding the pocket of space for Luke Bratnell. Hit one. It wasn't a bad try, and it got a touch from Redmayne on the way through.
Yeah, I think that's a good save. Got into the little pocket, loads of space, hit it pretty well. See, Backus just plays into him, enough space to just swivel on that across Redmayne, who gets his fingertips to it. A really good save.
So City have their first corner. Floated in by Bratton, but always favouring Andrew Redmayne, who really kept Sydney FC in the contest midweek against Kawasaki Frontale with a string of very fine saves. Actually had a very good season, hasn't he, Redmayne? Well, one or two that questioned him when Danny Vukovic left start of last season, but he's certainly come into his own this season. Free kick for the infringement, Uncle Shanajat. Sydney FC have won the last 7 meetings between these two. And with a nice piece of symmetry, they're also 7 games unbeaten at home since that loss to Wellington back in early December. Ninkovic. Nice switch by O'Neill. Grant able to advance. Can have a dig here. Ambitious. But in these conditions, it's maybe worth having a pot shot or two from long range. That one was in the air, maybe more suitably along the ground would test the goalkeeper in these conditions.
Well, his last touch just took it a little bit too far, and he had to stretch for it and got underneath it.
Came off the head of McLaren, not in the direction he wanted. Grant having a stretch in the air. Rattray gets it out to Zullo. A little bit short of Ninkovic, but the rebound favoured the Sydney FC fullback. It'll be a City throw. Let's go down to Adam Peacock, who hopefully has got an umbrella with him.
I do, Simon. Came prepared, or Kenny, the floor manager, helped me out, and he brought him along. But just on the pitch, speaking to a couple of the players coming up after warm-up, bit gluggy. It's a little bit slower than usual, but when it's really dry here, it's actually slow, so might help the speed of play. The top right of screen is the area of concern where the water, surface water, didn't wash away. Josh Palante, not in the squad again. They want this issue resolved with a possible transfer to Korea within the next week, even though they're not playing next weekend, Sydney.
Thanks, Adam. Do like the word gluggy. Have to use that a bit more, I think. Ninkovic. Fondra immediately on his bike down the right. Has Delbridge for company. Delbridge holds him up. Just long enough for his teammates to get back in numbers. Sydney's momentum is somewhat slowed. Grant calling for the ball. Ninkovic obliges.
Yeah, Grant's getting a lot of the ball. Jamison's not going too high, so Grant is always free on this right-hand side as the outlet.
There's Alan Stajic, full of smiles. Well, it's down to why wouldn't he be after last night? What a crazy game that was in Newcastle. His first win as an A-League coach. damaging result that for Newcastle Jets, of course, looking to put pressure on Melbourne City. Caceres, was the right idea, wasn't it? But not accurate enough for Gashanajad.
And also, similar to last night, anything straight, he's going to skip through, as that one did, script through to Galekovic.
Certainly had the better of the opening stages, but Melbourne City, you could argue, have probably come closer to breaking the deadlock thanks to Luke Bratton's drive, which Redmayne was forced to tip around for a corner. Bratton's given it away to Bratton, who immediately fires it in towards McLaren. Involved in a bit of a scrap with Rattray. It's well played.
Very well played by Rattray, just kept his composure there.
Ninkovic knew exactly where Zullo was. City could be a bit stretched here. Lafondra, Gashanajad on the right. Caceres arriving. Oh, what an intervention that was. Maybe a goal-saving intervention from Roston Griffiths.
It was. And the ball from Gashanajad wasn't what it needed to be. There wasn't enough on it. Terrific pace and anticipation from Roston Griffiths to prevent a clear-cut scoring chance for Sydney FC, and what started way back in their own penalty area. Look at this from Rattray. Composure, spots O'Neill, cross inside their own penalty box. That's a good ball from Warland, eventually releasing Lafondra. In fact, it's Lafondra with that ball. Gashanajad was the one he needed to hit. He needed more pace on it.
Top marks to Roston Griffiths. 150th A-League game for him, incidentally, today. Nice little milestone for him to have. And marking it with a very useful contribution for Melbourne City. Ninkovic. Bratton shut down the passing lane.
Yeah, too tight. A lot of bodies in there. The outlet again was Ryan Grant on this right-hand side. Acres of space.
Scott Jamison's got a bit of that here. LaRocca retained his spot this week. Jacopo LaRocca, after starting against Perth last time out, his first game from the off since back in round 2 against the Mariners. Maybe that's why he's a little bit rusty with the passing. The Italian, of course, who played in the city for quite a few years for Western Sydney Wanderers. Had 1 or 2 ding-dong battles with Sydney FC, as I remember as well. That challenge on Ali Abbas in particular, which I don't think Sydney FC fans have forgotten. It's a good touch by McLaren. Delat. It's McLaren. Good block by Alex Wilkinson, who threw his body down on the ground. McLaren might have thought he was in there for your record, or at least a share of it, Robbie.
Yeah, well, he mishit it. A difficult one to hit. Delat getting in behind for the first time. I think he's a real threat when he gets further forward. His pace and power.
Bratton stayed down. Looks to be in some discomfort. Certainly aware of it, but not willing to put the ball out. This is Grant. Grant's back on his feet and he's aiming for Rattray. Tell you what, good job he got rid of the ball quick, smart. Here we go again. Oh, dearie me. Left a bit in there, did Luke Bratton. He's chasing again. He's got to be careful here that he doesn't lose his head, Luke Bratton.
Well, you'd have to say that Sydney FC made the right decision, because Luke Bratton was quickly up and back.
So he got a whack to the hand, which was causing the discomfort. Nodded out wide by Delbridge. Set up by Grant for Caceres. City moving the ball around quite nicely. Rattray, Brandon O'Neill might have a go here. Again, it's a long-range effort, as was Ryan Grant some minutes ago.
And Zulo, the first 3 shots from Sydney FC have sailed harmlessly over the bar. Has hit a left-footed cracker this season, Brandon O'Neill. I think that was the Central Coast.
Was indeed. Which remains his only goal so far of season 18-19.
Well, at least it was one to remember.
Interesting, isn't it? All the talk pre-Christmas, it was going to be Brandon O'Neill who was leaving Sydney FC, and instead looks as though it's going to be his partner in crime, Josh Brillante. Pohang Steelers, his reported destination. It's neatly done by Warland. They've settled quite nicely into that left-sided central defensive role alongside Alex Wilkinson of late. No way back in at the moment for the import Job van der Linden. O'Neill finds the gap. Caceres. Gashanajad. Ryan Grant bombing forward down the right. Gashanajad turned into a traffic there, really.
Should have played him. He was in on a goal, Ryan Grant.
Zulo. Easily away by LaRocca. Rattray was harried enough by Shayon Harrison to concede the throw. Former Melbourne City man, of course. Paolo Rattray was the last remaining link to the old Melbourne Heart days when he left for Sydney FC at the start of last season. With Brillante perhaps on his way out, Rattray's going to have a big part to play, isn't he, in the closing rounds of the campaign and the Champions League.
Well, if you remember the start of the season, Rattray was, I thought, after 5 or 6, 7 games, he was their best player. Played predominantly in the position where Caceres is occupying at the moment.
Ninkovic. Quickly won back by City. Play off by Bacchus. Delat looking to drive it low and hard. Comes back to him off Ninkovic. City on this 6-game winless run. As you mentioned at the top, Robbie, they really need points. Would you like to see a bit more from them in this game in particular? Been a little bit lackluster, haven't they? That first half maybe against Perth being the notable exception.
Very much so. And look, I think if you look at them, they just lack a little bit of creativity in the middle of the park. And what happened with Fornaroli was quite extraordinary, really. Missing out a whole season, but with what they've got, you've got Jamie McLaren, they need more from the flanks, more coming in. Luke Bratton's been probably their most creative player. He's more of a number 6, you would have to say.
Turned over by McLaren. Interesting that Berenguer has been left out altogether today. Whether that's slight injury worry, not sure.
You just wonder with Melbourne City, the players that they do change very often their system. They played the last 2 games 4-3-3. Played pretty well, as you said, very good against Perth. And it's changed the system again today. Shoving the back from LaRocca on Lafondra.
Which gives Sydney FC another set-piece situation. Caceres and O'Neill discussing matters. Ben Warland has been sent forward. Alex Wilkinson remains back towards the halfway line. What have they got in their locker here? Tap short, O'Neill. That's a good punch by Galekovic. He's taken a bit of the man as well, which is not his fault. Sydney wants the ball put out because they've got a real issue here. Ben Warland got the thick end of it. I think it was a collision, wasn't it? You heard the crack of Galekovic's body, and I think it's on that knee of Ben Warland, which is clearly painful.
Galekovic attacking the ball strongly and comes right over the top. Warland falling awkwardly.
Whilst we got the break, let's go down to Adam Peacock, who's got a bit of news for us on Melbourne City.
Yeah, but Florian Berenguer, you mentioned before, Simon, he has got a little knock, so he's missed out tonight. And, of course, that's coupled with their 3 missing Ollie Roos that are off in Malaysia, trying to get to the next stage of qualifying for the Olympic tournament. But just on Melbourne City, I'll throw it back up to Robbie. I really noticed it here live again and watching them over the past 8 weeks or so, that just their lack of options in the attacking midfield region. Luke Bratton likes to get in there, but probably prefers to get it either deep or wide. So it just leaves this great big, it's like a Bermuda Triangle in behind the strikers that they can't penetrate through. I don't know if you've noticed that up there this evening.
Yeah, and I think, talking about it with Simon before, that, the lack of a creative player, number 10, if you want, who sits in that space, tries to get in between the lines. Bratton's always attracted to the ball. That's his game. And Bacchus, who's on that right-hand channel, is the same kind of player. So you do find that Harrison's staying wide on the left, and McLaren finds himself quite isolated.
Well, the good news is that Ben Warland is up and about. Well, he's going to have to take a few more moments with physio Elias Bukarim to get things right. So Sydney will continue a man short just for the time being. And we're going to restart with a drop ball. Which is going to be uncontested. Sydney were in possession. So it's punted back by Bratton, and it doesn't look good for Ben Warland because Jacob Tratt has immediately taken off the tracksuit, done his warming up. Looks like Sydney are going to have to make a change. And just as we mentioned how well Warland had fitted into that defensive line.
Yeah.
The fortunes of football, hey?
Tratt's always done well when he's been called upon, but that's a blow for Ben Warland. They're obviously worried about that left knee, not taking any risks.
Well, the good news is looks to be walking okay. Jacob Tratt on, incidentally, for his first appearance since mid-January. He too has been suffering with an injury. Gets his chance alongside Alex Wilkinson now. Redmayne having to hurry under pressure from McLaren. Tratt quickly into the action. Good use of the body to just nudge McLaren away. Well, that was lovely. Lafondra. Credit, though, to Schenkerveld, who read that intent. The applause you can hear in the background for Ben Warland as he makes his way all the way around the pitch to the tunnel area, where no doubt he'll continue to receive some treatment. Galbraith's long ball forward. Clear with any great conviction by Wilkinson. A good spin by Harrison. Here's Roston Griffiths. Opted to try and jab it out towards Delat.
I think he was thinking of the strike, but he was kind of really never in control of that ball. He was slightly off balance. Harrison, haven't seen much of him. It's opening 25 minutes. Most of Melbourne City's players gone either through the middle or out to the right-hand side. most of the game has really been stuck in that middle third. Little penetration from both sides.
Delbridge almost unbeatable in the air, as you'd expect for a man who's 193 centimetres tall. Oh dear, it's not that good on the ground though necessarily. Bit of a hospital ball for LaRocca. Decent release by Griffiths. Delat looking to cut inside. Just too many bodies around him in the end.
Well, he comes inside and he's so much more dangerous when he goes outside, Delat.
Agreed.
He's got plenty of pace and power to do that. There he came inside, and that's where all the bodies were.
Play early, Tratty.
Played early. Tratty was a cry from the bench. He did pick out Grant. He missed his kick after chesting the ball down. Missed the earlier game. Wellington Phoenix defeating Western Sydney Wanderers to further solidify their place in the top six. Roy Krishna on target, which takes him one clear of Adam Lafondra in the Golden Boot race. And then got a red card late on, or a second yellow. Here's Jamison. Bacchus, the former Western Sydney Wanderer. Richie Delat, two in the middle to try and pick out. Good shape to it, but Harrison couldn't reach it. Wilkinson did. Jamison for the little give and go with Bratton, and City get the decision. Infringement by O'Neill.
Yeah, just a touch late on Bratton. These kind of conditions, so often we see set pieces prove crucial.
If Luke Bratton fancies his chances here. Scott Jamison hasn't scored an A-League goal in getting on for 5 years. It would suit the right-footed Bratton a lot more. Tries to hang it up for a teammate. Steered clear for now by Wilkinson. Schenkerveld, Bratton. It's handball, surely, against Kieran Bacchus.
Yeah, the old double bounce got him. Greatest ball from Luke Bratton. He's got it in his locker to produce a better set piece than the one he just did.
Although can't reach that return from Ninkovic. Delat. Schenkerveld, who, if you believe the media rumours, is of serious interest to Sydney FC next season. City have said this week that they want to keep him. They're in discussions with regards to a new contract. Why wouldn't you want to? He's probably one of the best defenders in the league, the Dutchman. That's why Steve Corica perhaps is showing an interest. O'Neill. Bit loose. Jamison. Harrison. Delat. Looking to hit Jamison at the back post. Grant had its measure. Pinged forward by Caceres. Good win in the air by Delbridge. Bratton has a little look. Readjustment by Bacchus. Now we're back with Delat on the right. McLaren. Looking for the little cutback for Shayon Harrison. Never really looked likely.
And those two need to do better, Lafondra and Guchanachad, in respect to holding the ball up. That one straight to Lafondra, and he does like to play things first time, and sometimes it's not the best option. City enjoying a good period of possession.
Floated forward by Griffiths. Another straightforward win in the air for Wilkinson. Retro trying to punch it out towards Guchanachad, but Shankeveld unflustered. Delbridge likewise to find Griffiths. Who snuffed out the one real cause for alarm for Melbourne City. Sydney had an overlap on the right. Guchanachad not able to pick out a teammate under Caceres or Lafondra. Now there's a bit of space for Ninkovic to drive into, and Zullo pushing up alongside him on the left. Here's the fullback. And Zullo opted to go square. And Griffiths was there.
Well, to be fair to Zullo, I think he wants to play that ball first time, but there was no one in the box. I think Guchanachad was arriving late, and he's come back in. And then it was just too many bodies. Had time for City players to come back. I mean, it was a mistake. There's no doubt about that. It was the first time for 7 or 8 minutes. A lot of space down that left-hand side.
Fondra clattered into by Delbridge. Grant accepts the throw off McLaren. Oh, Grant's caught by Bratton. Sean Evans wants a word. It's just a warning.
You know, 2 late challenges there, 2 free kicks, and it's because Sydney haven't been able to get out of that tight area, tight space.
The arms were up for Bratton, but I think that was probably more to protect himself. Cross swung in, flicks off the head of Delbridge. Sydney will get a corner.
And you see there was 3 Melbourne City defenders alert to that ball. That was a good ball from Rattray. No one attacking it for Sydney FC.
Brandon O'Neill has jogged about 40 metres from one side of the pitch to the other to take this corner. Jacob Tratt has injected himself into the penalty area for the corner, which is dealt with for now by City. Rattray, there's a bit of space here for Ninkovic. Delbridge recovered his ground and the ball. Caceres into the box. Good sliding challenge again by Roston Griffiths.
Yep. Track didn't get caught ball watching there. Roston Griffiths, little one touch. We've seen them break open inside a penalty box like that. If you remember the Guchanachad's first goal, similar kind of movement.
O'Neill closed down well by Bacchus. Ninkovic first to react. Back with Wilkinson. O'Neill, Guchanachad in a good position. Well found as well. Just left it ever so slightly behind Caceres, which allowed Bratton to recover. Roston Griffiths is having a very composed game in defensive midfield for City. It's a real arm wrestle, isn't it, this one? Neither side able to really break free as yet. O'Neill. Time to have a bit of a look and thread it through for Gushanajad. Zolo cuts it back for Retre. Space hard to find. Caceres. Even McLaren tracking back. Caceres, drop of the shoulder, gets around Jamison. It's a good ball in too, and Lafondra missed it. Back with Tratt. Ninkovic. Lafondra. There's space for Grant on the right. O'Neill finds him. AQ up in the middle. Cross deflected, and LaRocca gets it high, but not far enough away. Slightly better with the boot. And pretty slow to get out and close down Retre. Caceres' intention, I think, was to let that one go through for Ryan Grant.
Well, they were resolute there, Melbourne City. Sydney, plenty of probes there. 3 or 4 goes at trying to break him down, and they weren't able to. Most of the time on this right-hand side, I think they look more dangerous when they get the ball to Ninkovic in that left inside pocket with Zulo bombing on. Not sure what he saw there.
A whole heap to get excited about in terms of goalmouth action. Maybe the best news, Rob, is that the rain stayed away by and large. They're particularly happy in the Cove because they're out exposed to the elements. Stretch, couldn't reach it. There's Griffiths again. Mopped up pretty much everything so far. Jamison gets a throw off Retre. Same two in a tussle again. Held by Harrison.
Well, you see that throw in from Jamison, just no movement. I mean, you may as well have put it down and said, Sydney, here, you have it. Gave him very little.
All a touch static, wasn't it, for City? Ron Joyce coached his 50th A-League game to a 2-2 draw against Perth Glory. His contract up in May. Fascinating to see whether he returns for a 3rd season. It's probably safe to say opinion is divided in the City quarters of Melbourne. Here's Bacchus. McLaren. Harrison wants it back post. Schenkerveld. Oh, all it needed was a touch. And City would surely have been one up.
Oh, he should have scored. It's completely missed. It was a brilliant run. And the ball out from Tratt was never on. A straight ball on. And he cut it out in the halfway line. McLaren with a super ball across. And quite simply, Schenkerveld should have scored.
He's in nosebleed territory, wasn't he? The big centre half. He's only ever scored once in the A-League.
Got it.
by Rattray towards Michael Zullo. O'Neill. Grant. Again, it's a little bit ambitious that from Ryan Grant.
Well, he's probably thought try something different. He's tried, they tried to break them down by little passes. This is the run from Bacchus, who's given the ball from Schenkerville. Great ball across. I think he's tried to backheel it.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have. It's side of the foot, the back of the net.
I got the impression it was ever so slightly behind him, so maybe he thought that was his only option. He doesn't get that far upfield too often, does he, apart from set pieces, Bart Schenkerville. Bratton. Jamison. To say that's a disappointing cross is a bit of an understatement.
It's because he's trying to measure across. And from there, and he knows because he's been in that position many times before, you just hit an area. It's up to the players in the middle to attack the ball.
It's been a couple of years as a Sydney FC player, 2010 to 2012. Still, we wait for the big lift-off. Here's Caceres, perhaps who can provide it. Now Gashanajad. City stretched across the face. And Richard Delat steers it away to safety for City.
Superb defending. And you're thinking, does Gashanajad take it on himself? It was a very dangerous ball. And brilliant defending from Delat.
And Caceres misses his kick.
Chanachan, you think, does he drive towards that near post? No one really making an effort to get across Delat for a tap-in. That is a really dangerous ball. It was Caceres.
Just been glimpses, really, haven't they, for Sydney FC and for City at the other end. Bratton shot in the 6th minute that's really caused an issue for either of the two goalkeepers. Jamison's going to get there ahead of Grant for this one, but Grant stood his ground. Jamison has crept forward from the throw, and Sean Evans isn't going to allow that. He was a good 10 metres further forward than from where he should have been. Little debate with Steve Corica. Still not happy, Sean Evans. We've got a second ball on the pitch, that's why. Which Stephen Lucas, the 4th official, retrieves. All rather in keeping with a fairly tepid first half, Robbie.
I said a couple of times already, it's been mostly in that middle third. Both sides have found it very difficult to break each other down. The best chance undoubtedly was Melbourne City's with that Bart Schenkerville chance.
Griffiths. Schenkerville, by the way, just gave his teammates a fair old bake for not staying out wide. I think it might have been Richie Delat. Left nothing to the imagination. Those two combined now. Delat, Harrison, Schenkerville. Griffiths looking for Jamison, finds him. Getting the boos from the Sydney FC fans. That's a better cross. And it's over the top from Kieran Bacchus, who wants the corner, but he's not going to get it. Man who's never scored in the Hyundai A-League.
The ball out to Jamison. Comes back, floats this one. Not a lot of pace on it. Sydney defender does just enough to put off Bacchus. A bit of a body check.
3 minutes of time to be added on, largely for that injury to Ben Warland. If you are just tuning in, had to be replaced by Jacob Tratt, who's sprinted to get in ahead of Jamie McLaren for that one. Good switch by Griffiths.
It has been good for Melbourne City.
Very good
in this first half.
No way through for Bacchus. Shankabel, Sydney FC applying enough pressure to force City back towards Galekovic. There's no other option but to go long. Helped on by Delat. Now a chase for the ball between Harrison and Redmayne, who was always the favourite. Another good header by Delat. Putting Tratt under pressure, and McLaren has got front position on him. Sydney helped out by Zullo, who then gives Jacob Tratt a bit of a spray for taking a bit of a chance on that left-hand touchline. City finishing the half, stronger of the two. Talking of which, that's too strong from Delat.
Yeah, silly one from Delat, because Zullo literally had nowhere to go. He was never going to shield that ball out for a goal kick. He pretty much had him where he wanted him. You see this, and he just lets him off the hook. Well, it's a little bit like, I think, you know, two sides go in to the dressing rooms and the coaches can give out the notes of much do better in the second half.
Well, that's 15 minutes away now as Sean Evans blows the half-time whistle. A lot of huff and puff from Sydney FC. Jamie McLaren hasn't had too many chances to equal Robbie's record of scoring in 5 consecutive games. Rostin Griffiths has been a rock in defensive midfield for City, who probably created the first half's best chances for Luke Bratton, for Bart Schenkeveld, and latterly for Kieran Bacchus. But at the break, at a very sodden Leichhardt Oval, it is goalless. Sydney FC 0, Melbourne City 0. Let's go down to Adam.
Thank you, Simon. Got Adam Lafondra here for a quick chat. Bright start for you guys, but you worried a little about how a couple of chances maybe eventuated there for City at the end?
I think that's in any game. You know, you can't keep the door shut for a whole game, so we're obviously going to concede chances here and there. It's up to us to limit them, and you know, take the chances we've created at the other end.
Feel good, feel fresh after Wednesday?
Yeah, I feel really good. You know, I'm used to playing, you know, back-to-back games, so it doesn't really faze me, this sort of situation. You know, and I'm relishing it.
Used to the conditions as well. Thanks, Ads. Cheers.
No worries. Cheers. Thank you.
We're off to a quick break, and we'll be back with Bruce Gite down here on the pitch with myself, Adam Peacock, to chat through the highlights from the first half. Back in a moment from Leichhardt Oval.
Yeah, man, I'll give him the hand mic now. I've got a quick
That's mine.
What's up? It's a fun and safe environment for your future.
Yep, this is Rexy 2, Rexy 2. Oh, yep. There we go. Hey, Bruce.
I can't remember where I got that. Thanks,
like,
mate.
just have a quick chat.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, all good. 1, 2.
Over the course of 11 seasons here, the latest and greatest, plus the biggest
Yep.
brands, including LG, Samsung, Sony, Panasonic,
Got it.
and Hisense.
And that's a playoff.
Norman is the big screen specialist.
Sweet. What do you want us to wear?
Wow, what is that?
No.
The ultimate Sydney FC A-League fan. Let's take a look at the big screen now and some of today's entrants already. You can share your best Sydney FC stadium moment using the Star Sydney FC
Picture's pretty good.
Yeah,
With
can
up
see
to
how you get your foot
$100
stuck, though.
vouchers for the Star today.
how you get your foot
You've
stuck.
also been
That
the
ends
running for
bad.
the ultimate
Oh, really?
Sydney FC
Yeah,
fan
we saw
experience
Casino
at the
trying to-
Star Sydney.
You expected the bounce to be able to
This mega
backflip.
end of season prize is valued at over $2,000. It includes return private transfers to the Star Sydney, one night's accommodation in the Astral residence, breakfast for two at Sokyo, and tickets for two to the Sydney FC Sky Blue Ball,
you
hosted
going
at
up?
the Star, plus a personal meet and greet with a current Sydney FC player.
I'm not going up
So
there
don't miss
flying
out.
solo.
Share your photo today. The Star Sydney FC hashtag for your chance to win.
Finish, stand here. Stop anyone coming through. Thanks.
It wasn't.
Sydney, City chances first, and then Sydney chances. Welcome back to Leichhardt Oval, and the game did go ahead. Solemn occasion before, given what happened in Christchurch on Friday. Once the football got underway, not a lot between the two sides. Sydney FC, the brighter start of the two, but struggled to go on with it. And as the half went on, City, felt a little more comfortable. Welcome back pitch side, Adam Peacock, alongside Bruce Gite. What'd you make of that, Brucey?
Yeah, look, a bit of an arm wrestle, really, the first half. It's very much been a game that's been a midfield battle, and they're struggling to fashion any real clear-cut chances.
Yeah, Melbourne City, probably the reason why Sydney FC have struggled is because that back three have been so organised. But going forward, Melbourne City, again, there's this conundrum, which doesn't look like it's solving itself tonight, is to creating not just a chance, but a number of chances, which forces the pressure on the opposition. It's just not apparent.
No, it's not apparent. And, you know, Melbourne City are playing away. They're not going to come here and play swashbuckling football. They haven't been doing that for long periods of this whole season. So I don't think many people expected them to do that tonight, but it is a problem area. And, you know, these are the best sort of chances they're getting. Shots from outside the box. There was a good interchange here between McLaren and Delat. Good block here by Alex Wilkinson, but these are half chances, not even. So, look, that's something that they're going to have to rectify, but it sort of looks like they're playing not to concede a goal.
Would you have gone the flick here as a striker? And Bart Schenkenfeld's not a striker, but would you have gone the Viduka back heel?
I would have tried the flick, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think he has tried it there. He's just mistimed it. Yeah. So, look, again, probably their best chance of the half, but leaves sort of a lot to be desired, especially for a club and a team that, you know, like Melbourne City, that possesses such quality.
What about Sydney FC? Their first 10 minutes was full of movement and verve, but after that, they've struggled to get through those lines up to that final third.
Yeah, but in saying that, and it's not an excuse, but they've had a lot of travel and they're playing quite a few of the same players. You know, they haven't rotated their squad all that much.
Sounds like an excuse.
It sounds like an excuse, but it's a fact, you know, and I've been there, I've done it. I know what it's like playing this Asian Champions League. It's taken it out of them. And, you know, they haven't played poorly this
brilliant
first
move.
half. This is a great move. If this was a goal, and I'm surprised, Roston Griffiths, not the fastest player on the pitch, but geez, he got some speed up there. But look, you know, a team that is not quite looking themselves, you know, they've tried, they've poked, they've prodded, but haven't come up with anything significant in this first half. And the pitch actually feels and looks quite good. I mean, we're standing on it now. You know, watching it in the trucks where I was watching it earlier, I thought maybe the pitch is playing a part, but it's actually quite a good surface.
Geez, you're a man of the people, not up in the suite. You're in there with the people here at Fox, the production crew in the truck, just getting across things for this halftime chat. Unfortunately, we've got to chat about Benny Warland. It looks like there's a big possibility that he's done his ACL here. Speaking to the Sydney medical staff, they've done the test. It's a little bit wobbly in there. They won't know for sure in 24 hours, but this is a stinker.
I watched the replay in the truck about 5 or 6 times, and whenever a player goes down without much contact and grabs their knee, you're always a little bit concerned. When I came to the halfway line, it's the first question I asked you. How's Benny Warland? Obviously played with him at Adelaide United, a good friend of mine, and terrible news. I mean, we don't know exactly what it is, like you've said. We're hoping for the best, obviously, for him and Sydney FC. But look, I think, you know, he's going to have to see how it goes. Hopefully it's not too bad, but innocuous circumstances again, and hopefully it's not a bad injury.
Yeah, dampener on a damp night for Sydney FC, but they'll look to push on in this second half and get a result. At least 3 points here they need if they're going to keep touch with Perth Glory, who won the other night in Adelaide. To review the entire weekend, both here and abroad, right after this one at Leichhardt Oval, we've got Sunday shootout to look forward to. Tara Rushton, what's coming up?
Thanks, Adam. Yes, shootout is back, and we've got lots of football action across the weekend to wrap up with special guest Jets defender Daniel Georgescu, who joins us on the couch. We revisit the Nuts night in Newey. What about that? Perth Glory continue their march towards the Premier's Plate victory. They get back to winning ways, and Darren Lewis joins us live from London as the Premier League race well and truly heats up. We'll see you straight after full time.
Welcome back to Leichhardt Oval. There's not been an awful lot to inspire the fans here on a wet night in Sydney's inner west in the first 45. However, you might remember it was goalless in the F3 derby last night. Look how that one ended up. So we live in hope that the goals will come in the second half. They've still got smiles on their faces. After all, Sydney FC have scored in 33 consecutive A-League games now. And Melbourne City, of course, have got their own reasons to want to get the 3 points. They haven't gone winless in 7 matches in the A-League since the end of season 13-14, the start of 14-15. So plenty at stake in this second 45. Sydney looking to close that gap on Perth to 6 points again at the top. City looking to put more daylight between them and the Newcastle Jets in 7th in the race for those other final spots. No further changes at the break. A reminder, Jacob Tratt had to replace Ben Warland in the first half. We hope the news on the Sydney central defender is good. There is a fear that he might have done his ACL. We hope that is not the case. So a blast on Sean Evans' whistle gets us back underway. Sydney FC going from right to left in this second half, and just that little bit flat first half, weren't they, the home side, Robbie Slater?
Yeah, and of course they've had that ACL game. A lot of travel, of course, and maybe case of the first 45 minutes running the cobwebs out. But for me, they need Ninkovic more involved in the game. A lot of the play was right-sided. And I think some of their best moments definitely came down the left-hand side. Melbourne City, I felt they had the best chances, and they did.
Scott Jamieson said a few weeks ago their biggest problem was game management. They certainly did that well enough. First 45. Off the head of Kieran Bacchus. Sydney felt it might have glanced the arm. There's a bit of room to advance into for Luke Bratton here. Will it open up for him? He tries to tee up Richie Delat, but Ninkovic tracked the run. Bratton having to do that now with Jacob Tratt, who finds Gashanajad, who unfortunately for the home team is in an offside position.
Yeah, he went too early, no doubt about it. The clever play from Ninkovic, tracks back, dangerous position and little back heel.
Now City have got a problem with Scott Jamieson here, who's just sat down on the turf. And there's a little bit of angst on the Melbourne City bench, and I can tell you they've immediately told Curtis Good to get warmed up and get ready. And whether that's something that happened in the first half, and they thought they'd try and give him a few minutes in the second. So another change enforced through injury. Sydney had theirs in the first half. Curtis Good, who started the last game against Perth, is going to get his opportunity off the bench. And off goes Jamieson.
You'd think Delbridge will probably move out into that position. Curtis Good slip into the back three.
Man for all positions, isn't he, Harrison Delbridge? It's unfortunate for Scott Jamieson against one of his former clubs. Had one or two handy moments in the first half. You wouldn't imagine Delbridge would be able to offer anything like as much in terms of his crossing ability down the left-hand side. Jamieson straight down the tunnel. Finding Shayon Harrison, who's been rather quiet. He's not got the throw for that as well. Throws the ball away in disgust. Englishman who scored 26 goals in 50 matches for the Spurs under-23 team in the Premier League 2 competition. He's got a bit to prove as well because his contract at Spurs is up at the end of the season.
Well, he operated on the left-hand side first half. He started here on the right-hand side.
See what he does here. Returns it to Delat. Bratton surrounded by sky blue jerseys. Off the head of Lafondra. It's a bit aimless from La Rocca. And Ryan Grant to motor on forward.
Well, promising run, and he had really nothing to hit. Some good space here for Zulo.
Certainly is, and he'll track this one down. 4 or 5 to try and pick out in the middle. Oh, a miss kick. But it seemed easy, really, to score for Ninkovic. He just couldn't readjust the body.
It was maybe slightly behind him. That might be being kind.
Maybe a bit similar to Schenkevelt's at that end of the ground in the first half.
Zulo in acres of space and picks him out.
It's actually hit his standing leg, hasn't it?
Maybe slightly behind him, but still, the technique he has, that's a really good chance. Their best chance of the game so far.
City have been warned. They left far too much space for Zulo, who's beaten in the air there by Harrison. Brought down now by Lafondra. Back through Tratt. He's giving it straight back to Delat, who in turn turns it over to O'Neill. Comedy of errors from both teams. Ninkovic. Spun beautifully out of space there. Rebound favours Lafondra. And there was a foul on Curtis Good by Lafondra. Led with the arm, which Sean Evans didn't miss.
He was trying to get it to Guchanachad and really never had control of that ball either. There's so little space in that middle third. Everything is really hurried from both sides.
Here's the stat that sums up the game, really. Possession, Sydney FC 50%, Melbourne City 50%. 2 shots for Sydney, 3 for City. Casual by Rattray, got away with it. Ninkovic having to go the long routes. Caceres can slip it through, now they could be in. Ryan Grant bearing down on goal. Guchanachad central, Lafondra too, and he couldn't find either. Gets a corner, but it will be of scant consolation.
No, what a chance. He just couldn't find the right ball. He's just thinking there, maybe there's a thought he should take that on himself. I know it's a difficult angle. You watch the Melbourne City defenders, and it's a great break, great first touch. Takes another one. Doesn't beat the first man. Well, I suppose looking at that, there was no chance for a strike.
O'Neill loops it up towards Lafondra, who heads it down into the ground, but not really the contact required. Steve Corica out of his technical zone to get things started quickly again for his team. Backheel by Ninkovic, gets a lucky deflection which favours Caceres. Ferried inside by Zulo for Ninkovic. Now Guchanachad. A bit more about Sydney at the start of this second half. They work it out to Zulo. Easy for Delbridge under no pressure. Brought down by Ninkovic, top of the box. City can't get out at the moment. Ryan Grant. Caceres can't get a piece of it, and it's swept forward by Delat. And Harrison and McLaren have only each other for company in the half of the field, defended by Sydney FC. It's a good tackle by Zulo.
It comes inside Harrison. For me, that's the lack of confidence, because he was one-on-one. There you're looking for him to skip down the outside.
Again, Rich.
A bit more energy about the home side, Robbie.
Yeah, a bit more invention as well. Movement, rotation on that right-hand side.
Caceres.
It's too slow.
Not fouled by Bratton.
No, it was a good challenge. It was just too slow, Caceres.
Delbridge holding off the attentions of Caceres. Schenkerveld. Touch off Ninkovic. Griffiths can open himself up and spray it out towards Delbridge. Has time to try and measure the cross, but he's overhit that one horribly, and we can go down and get an update from Adam Peacock.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Bad news from Melbourne City. Scott Jamieson, broken toe, he reckons. He did it in the first half, copped a little knock. No good to start this one. That's why he's off the park. And that man is playing left wing back. Just on the other side, Warren George really worried about Milos Ninkovic. You heard Steve Corica wanting to get the ball switched from side to side. Ninkovic is taking up this position, which is making life hard for Richie Delat, and he's following him infield. Joyce wants Delat and Schenkerveld to start talking to each other like friends and teammates to maybe handle that situation and not get bent out of shape.
We need you with a whiteboard, Adam, down there. Good stuff, mate. Ninkovic had that chance from Zullo's delivery some minutes ago. As it is, it's going to be a free kick delivery by Luke Bratton. Delbridge lurking at the back post. His height could be a threat. It's angled towards that part of the penalty area. He got the nod down, did the big defender. Born in Australia, but
I'm just listening.
Lived a lot of his early life in the United States, in Portland, Oregon. Played in the second-tier competition over there for FC Cincinnati latterly. Lafondra, good touch, almost gets clear of LaRocca, not quite. Griffiths getting distance on the clearance. Game that's slowly waking up, Robbie.
Yeah, there's been a bit more going forward, if you want, and Sydney trying to beat that first defensive line. Have done it on probably 3 occasions now.
Jacob Tratz, there's Sydney FC's run into the end of the season. A couple of biggies in there, of course, with victory at home, the Big Blue, and then Perth come calling in round 26, plus a Sydney derby. Very exciting end to the season. If they could get the win here, just keeps Perth on their toes, doesn't it, at the top of the A-League ladder.
For Sydney, it's to stay away from Victor as well. Victor will be watching this. They're only 1 point behind. That top 2 is so important, that second spot.
Lafondra, one first time. That would have been a really spectacular goal had he executed properly. 3-2 against City this season, but this was some way off beam.
Not sure whether he's maybe trying to hook that one back in. Anyway, it's not harmlessly over the bar for Melbourne City.
Ninkovic couldn't quite readjust. Bacchus. Bratton trying to turn it around the corner for the run of McLaren. Rattray. It's good scrapping again by Bratton. Harrison challenged strongly from behind by Zullo. This is Delat. Gets clear of Rattray. Griffiths, little look over his shoulder to see Lafondra arriving. Good advances, floats it towards Harrison, who brought it down well. Still might get a chance here. It's good scrambling by Wilkinson and by Zullo before him.
Well, it looked like it was going to drop for Harrison, and McLaren was lurking as well.
The tempo of the game is much better. Grant trying to bend it around for the run of Gushanajad. He does get there. Can't keep the ball in play.
He's just not been able to find that space. Gushanajad clip ball to the back post. Zullo misses it, and they somehow just scramble it away.
I think McLaren was actually offside in the first instance, but it went beyond him. And the ricochet really could have easily favoured Shayan Harrison. There's that line that we draw on, of course. That's not what the VAR sees necessarily. Didn't matter in the end. Good is good. Straight at Jacob Tratt. Grant trying to jab it down the line, but the large presence of Delbridge was in the way. Sean Evans thought about blowing the whistle. There was a foul, but Grant retained possession. Slid out by O'Neill, not with any great pace towards Zullo. A spin by Ninkovic. Likewise from Rattray. Ferried out by O'Neill towards Caceres.
So congested. That's the kind of ball you need and the kind of run
which Zullo provides. And now it's time to sling it in towards the back post. And it came off the chest of Gushanajad, but there was a push by the Iranian.
He's complaining, but there was clearly a push. And that was a good ball from Zullo to the back post.
Still got that little protective patch on the neck, hasn't he, Reza Gushanajad? Which ruled him out from starting against Kawasaki Frontale during the week.
There's the cross and slight tail on it, and there's the push. Missed the target anyway. I wonder how long, when you look at it, Alex Brosk time.
Or maybe an injection of pace in the shape of Mitch Austin or Luke Ivanovic. There it is again. It's only a slight push, but it's enough. Rattray losing out. Kieran Bacchus galloping forward. Shayan Harrison, chance here, scores! His first goal in the A-League, and he finished it clinically, the Englishman. Melbourne City lead, just past the hour mark.
Well, it's a beautiful finish. And Rattray not strong enough in the challenge in the middle of the park, and they were away. It was a perfect weight on the pass, great first touch, and a lovely finish from Harrison. There's Rattray, not strong. He's just trying to nip that one off Bacchus. Beautiful pass. McLaren takes two defenders away. Great first touch, even better second. There's the weight. Cushions it with the first and just passes it past a desperate Redmayne. Really good goal.
Nice first in the A-League. Not his first senior goal. He did score one in the English lower leagues whilst on loan from Tottenham, but that will feel good for Shayan Harrison. He's had away 5 games for it. And his left peg did the job. Just at the point in the game where you thought Sydney FC was starting to assume control, City strike. Their first goal against the Sky Blues this season.
Well, Bacchus was just stronger in the challenge in the middle of the park. Rattray tried to nip it, I think, to Brandon O'Neill. You've got to be strong in that challenge. And once Bacchus won it, he was away running onto the back four. Good movement from McLaren. Unselfish run, took 2 defenders away, and Harrison, who'd followed the action, got himself on the score sheet with a really nice finish.
Now Bratton thinks he's offside here, but he wasn't. Just stopped for a couple of seconds. As if to say, am I on? Intervention by Delat. Sydney could be in trouble again here. Richie Delat with a cushion ball, and down goes McLaren, but doesn't appeal for a penalty, although I can tell you Warren Joyce did.
Well, you got away with that, Sydney. That was another good situation. Similar, Richie Delat. Ball from Kuchanich was a poor one, trying to switch play to Zulo.
Steve Corrick has seen enough. Alex Brosk is going to be with us shortly. Stolen by O'Neill. Likewise by Schenkerveld. Crunching challenge from Zulo, which leaves Schenkerveld prone on the turf. Here's Brandon O'Neill. Oh, he's got it horribly wrong.
Wrong option. That's difficult from that kind of angle. He had Kuchanich just to his left. He could have slipped him in.
It was a thunderous challenge from Zulo on Schenkerveld. There's a big size differential between the two, but Schenkerveld got the worst of it. Here's that penalty shout. Well, Warren Joyce's penalty shout, Robbie.
No.
There came Zulo. Bang.
It takes a bit to hurt big old Bart.
So Sydney make their second change. Alex Brosk is with us at the expense of Reza Gushanajat. Reversal of the change during the week in Japan.
And you'd think Ivanovic wouldn't be too far away.
Brosk did score a goal in the FFA Cup tie between these two at this venue a couple of years back. He hasn't scored in the A-League since the treble he got at Jubilee Stadium against the Mariners back in round 11. Sydney need one from somewhere. Delat beyond Harrison. McLaren might make something of it. Rattray again being pursued by Bacchus. That's what led to the opening goal. Ninkovic.
Well, Melbourne City aren't going to change their game plan now. They've got something to defend, a lead.
Turned by Caceres. Brosk brought into the game for the first time. Caceres too slow. Just pumped forward by Bacchus, where Harrison was all alone.
Like you said, Ivanovic or Austin, both with pace. Probably takes off someone like Caceres, I would imagine. Ivanovic on that right-hand side.
Looks as though that is going to be the change. Meantime, Caceres. Good tackle by Bratton.
Oh, he's got to release
and
that
McLaren
ball.
free on the right. Tratt across to cover now. Still McLaren. Here's Harrison. Wasn't the best first touch. Still has it. Barged over by Grant, but no foul.
Just took too long. Harrison, his first touch let him down. A really good situation they didn't make the most of there.
Oh, Griffiths. Late on O'Neill. That's the midway point to the second half. Sydney's 7-match unbeaten run at home in some jeopardy, potentially. Schenkerveld's header didn't really get the distance. Ninkovic trying to slip it through.
Which was never on because Zulu never shaped to make that run.
Rattray. Grant sneaking forward on the right. I think that was the intention. Pretty poor execution. Ninkovic sliding in. And we're back to that war of attrition in the centre of the park, Robbie.
I'm Sydney just trying to force it. Balls that aren't on, instead of being patient.
Thanks for Harrison, who turned into traffic, but somehow gets away from 3 defenders. Still going Shayon Harrison. It's Jamie McLaren. Saved with the boot of Redmayne and scooped clear by Zulu. They worked it well between the two of them, Harrison and McLaren.
What a run from Harrison. In the middle, just through 2 challenges and a good ball to McLaren, who had a sided goal. He hasn't had many tonight. And Redmayne with fingertips. And unfortunately for Melbourne City, no one was following in for a tap-in.
So, Steve Corica empties his bench. It's Luke Ivanovic to replace Anthony Caceres. An injection of youthful vitality and speed down that right-hand side for Sydney. And you'll remember, on his starting debut for Sydney FC, Luke Ivanovic had a most eventful first half an hour, scored his first A-League goal, picked up a head knock and eventually departed after 30 minutes due to a hamstring injury. Zulu.
They're just quicker to the ball at the moment, Melbourne City, and it does become a tough time of the year with the Asian Champions League.
O'Neill nicely flighted out to Grant. Inside the box is Brosk. Blades one challenge. Backus got a piece of it, and this is the danger for Sydney FC. McLaren and Harrison combining well together. Richie Delat arriving as well to lend a hand, and it's going to be a corner for Melbourne City.
Hit him in transition, and Sydney making it easy for them. And Harrison is having a very good second half, and that was good from him there. Okay, he doesn't get around. He got around him once, and he had to wait because he didn't have anyone with him, but he was nice and positive.
He was virtually anonymous first half, wasn't he, Shayon Harrison? He's provided the moment that matters so far. Maybe about to assist a second. Away by Wilkinson. Bratton was trying to tee it up for Backus. Luke Ivanovic stole in. And there's that pace that we talked about. To purpose as well, eventually just outnumbered. And then Bratton drawing the contact.
It was a great burst from Ivanovic, but at the end of it, that's, you know, experience where 3 defenders, he's going to try and then just hold the ball. Because you'd have to say, at the moment, looks more likely a second for City rather than an equaliser for Sydney.
Sydney's 33-game run of having scored in every single game in that period about to end. It's a good run by Delat, into the box by Delbridge. Might drop here for Harrison. McLaren on the turn, maybe. Dug out by Wilkinson. Sydney not convincing, but they've got it away for now. Grant looking to drive forward. Brosk. Good exchange between the two. Ivanovic settles for the throw. And just on that stat, 33 games with a goal at least in every single one. They're only 3 shy of Brisbane's all-time record in that particular register. They've drawn a blank here so far. Grant to sling it in. Easy for Curtis Good to clear. Rattray's header straight at Griffiths, and Shayon Harrison was the ball if Griffiths had been more aware. Schenkerveld. Harrison. Rattray providing cover. Zullo to scamper forward. He saw the gap and went for it. And he's got the free kick and a booking for Richie Delat.
Yeah, and he didn't need to do that, Delat, because I think Zullo had lost that ball.
First booking of the game.
Rocker was coming across. I'm pretty sure he was going to collect that.
Easy decision for Sean Evans. Let's see the arrival of young Connor Metcalf, presently as City's second change. Not before this free kick, which Brandon O'Neill is about to deliver.
He might clip this one to the back post and look for the run of Ryan Grant. No one's looking at Ryan Grant at the moment.
High defensive line by City. Now they drop. Yeah, it's towards Grant, but not quite enough. Jump back by Rattray. Down the line by Grant. Cleverly done. Ivanovic. And it's Michael Zullo. Oh, he got nice contact on it on the half volley.
Yeah, didn't keep his head down. Needed to keep that ball down on the half volley. And he's leaning back as he hits it.
Here's that change for City as we watch this effort from Michael Zullo again.
He sort of stabbed at it. Didn't really believe it, did he?
Kieran Backus, who played a huge part in the only goal of the game so far, teeing up Shayon Harrison. Here's the man to be replaced, and on comes Connor Metcalf, just 19 years of age, the boy from Newcastle. And just his fourth A-League appearance. The final quarter of an hour. It's with Brandon O'Neill. Again, they look for Zullo and find him beautifully. Cross charge down by Delat. O'Neill. Grant is at the back post. He does find him. Delbridge made the block. Ivanovic. Blaze is over.
Rush of blood. He was thinking all-out power there, and the youngsters should have been thinking composure, just keep it down. There's a lot of bodies in the box and keep it low. Decent chance. There's that ball clipped for the late run of Ryan Grant. Tries to head it, does get it back, just plays it back.
You're right, he's trying to take the leather off that one, hasn't he, Luke Ivanovic? And how many times have we seen that tactic by Sydney down the years? Ryan Grant stealing forward in behind. Nearly paid off. Sydney just in front in terms of attempts, but not a single one on target yet. I think it shows what sort of an afternoon it's been for Steve Corica's team. Lafonda has lost out. He's barely had a sniff.
Lost the ball when he really shouldn't have. And look at this run from Delat.
Driving run by Delat. He loses out, though, to Tratt. Schenkerveld didn't fancy it, did he? Full-blooded attempt by Jacob Tratt. I suppose it's this period of the game also, Robbie, where that travel from Japan during the week is going to start to take its toll on a heavy pitch for Sydney FC.
Yeah, certainly, but I think really it's played its part all night. They've been rather flat. They did have a good start to the second half, but Melbourne City have been better in the last 20 minutes of this half.
Bratton moves it out towards Delbridge. Over the head of McLaren. Harrison! Oh, it's gone in via a deflection. And it's 2-0 for Melbourne City, and Shayon Harrison will claim a double. Both really well executed with that left boot.
And the cross from Delbridge, we said when Jamison went off that you wouldn't get too much crosswise out of Delbridge. Well, that was a perler, and they just didn't pick him up. Harrison just lurking at the back post, and technically perfect, the volley. You see Harrison, he's not even made a run, and it's behind everyone, and it gets a deflection, but it's a beautiful volley. He controlled it, dropped his shoulder, got nearly horizontal. Look at that, brilliant technique. And another very good Melbourne City goal.
Paolo Rattray got the unwanted final touch. Oh, maybe,
yeah, it was probably off
maybe
target.
That was going wide. So it might just go down as an own goal. We'll have to wait and see on that one.
Well, it won't matter to Melbourne City. It might to Harrison, but still it's the technique of the strike that makes the goal, doesn't it?
Melbourne City last won an A-League game by defeating the Wanderers by 4-3 on January the 22nd. Look very well placed now. It's a good scrapping too by Metcalf. What a second half for Shayon Harrison.
Delbridge gets his head up, goes, and as I said, he didn't make a run. He just stood there. Zulo just sort of wandered into the box and left him all on his own. And it's a brilliant volley. That probably was off target. But for me, if it was me, I'd be giving it to him.
I'm sure he'll be trying to claim it. Dubious goals panel, whoever they may be, will be making a decision. We're into the last 10 minutes. Sydney FC have got a mountain to climb. Ivanovic. O'Neill's not going to reach that one. Metcalf there first, and Griffiths in ahead of Ivanovic as well. Everything going City's way. McLaren on the left. Looking to attack Wilkinson. Sydney FC have lost just 4 of their last 41 home games in the A-League. They're going to need an almighty recovery to get back from this position. Metcalf. City happy to play a little bit of keep ball.
Yep, they're in total control at the moment.
LaRocca. Wide of Griffiths. Sydney steal it back. Rattray. O'Neill. And Lafondra was offside. Couldn't get the better of Schenkeveld in any case. Overall, it's just been a pretty bad day at the office for the Sky Blues. Last loss at home, that was at Jubilee Stadium, 8th of December. Clearly offside against Lafondra, when Mark Redan's Phoenix did a real job on them, winning by 3-1. And you can say that Melbourne City have done something similar here tonight, but still time to be played. That's going to skip away off the turf from Alex Brosk.
Well, first and foremost, what Melbourne City have done is they've just made it very difficult for Sydney FC to break them down. And then in this second half, they just grew with confidence, and in transition, they've been lethal.
Tratt. Solo. Metcalf. Good use of the feet, and it's a useful looking ball as well. Oh, McLaren's offside. Doesn't know it yet, does now.
too. He's looked really decent since coming on Metcalf. Just nice on the ball, nice and composed.
One of the many youngsters that Warren Joyce has at his disposal, even with the 3 Olyroos away. Played only 18 minutes in his 3 substitute appearances prior to tonight. And lifts it into the box, but LaRocca gets his head to it, and then Delbridge. This will be a much-needed win for City. Give them a bit of breathing space in the top 6. Looked clumsy that by Good, but Ross quick to recover.
Well, he was going to give a free kick, but he's played the advantage.
Jacob Trapp with nowhere to go. Rattray. And they look for Grant.
It's a poor pass. Didn't need to be lifted. Rather despondent Sydney FC heads down.
If it stays this way, City will move into 5th place on the A-League ladder, above Adelaide, who would then be the club most in peril from the clubs outside the bottom 4. There is the As-Live ladder. Sydney, well, you'd probably say that that's game, set and match in terms of the Premier's plate, Robbie. Perth 9 points clear with just 5 to go.
Yeah, it's fairly evident. It's been fairly evident for a while that Perth certainly had, well, they've certainly got one hand on it now.
Fondra drew the contact from LaRocca. Fairly heavy whack to the coccyx.
Well, this one's too far out, you'd think, to strike it. Difficult to get an angle on it because it's very central.
Brandon O'Neill has scored a couple of very nice free kicks in the past, but I sense you might be right. Tries to hang it up, but Griffiths flicks it away. Back in by Zullo. Test here for Galekovic. Good punch by the goalkeeper. Sydney FC still without a shot on target to test Eugene Galekovic. The lat in the road. Shankeveld can turn and head up fields. And he gets around Trapp with ease. They could be in again here. Harrison potentially on a hat-trick. If that second one counts as his. Look at Shankeveld with the Ronaldo-type step-overs. He's the centre-back, remember?
They just got too clever. Shankeveld broke, no one could go with him. It's only Harrison that managed to get to the penalty box.
Well, he's not going to get his hat-trick, I can tell you that, because he's about to be withdrawn in favour of Rami Najarine. Well, what a second half he's had, Robbie.
Yeah, and he's a player that's, you know, needed to show more, and he's done that tonight. In the second half, he was virtually non-existent in the first half, but fair play to him in the second half. He's been the difference between the two sides.
Gets a hug from Paddy Kisnorbo, one of the assistant coaches, and Rami Najarine, who is a Sydney boy by birth. Spent his junior days with the Western Sydney Wanderers. Gets his chance for the last few minutes. O'Neill.
It's a tired O'Neill.
Najarine couldn't get away from Grant. Slipped it through for Delbridge. Upended by Grant. two Sydney FC fans, and probably, in fact, probably more than one or two, starting to head for the exits. They've seen enough on this grey, wet all day. The Cove aren't leaving, of course.
Well, of course, earlier on in the day, as we were speaking at the start, there was talk of this game being postponed. And given the way it's gone, it would have been a better result for Sydney.
City delighted with that decision. Set for their first win over the team led by Steve Corica since season 15-16. Sydney have won the last 7 straight between these two. Not, it seems, today. Ninkovic, who's been quiet by his standards. Delat directing Connor Metcalf where to go. The youngster obliges. You're right, Robbie. He has shown some very nice touches, hasn't he, Metcalf?
Nice and composed on the ball. Good left foot. Sydney trying to find the energy to press. They have to press.
Metcalf gets his head to it. Well, McLaren, of course, would love a goal to equal Robbie Slater's record. Oh, down goes Delat. He's not going to get the foul as we move into 4 minutes of stoppage time. First glance, I thought that was clearly a foul on Delat. Sean Evans disagreed.
Well, I thought he got the ball.
Yep. Referee's right. I'm wrong, not for the first time. Throw about the best Luka Ivanovic could do. Very satisfactory day for Melbourne City, and 3 of their last 5 are against teams in the bottom 4. Zullo, Lafondra couldn't spin away from La Rocca. He gets himself into a spot of bother before Bratton helps him out. Overall, Robbie, you wouldn't say it's been an eye-catching display necessarily by Melbourne City, but certainly an effective one.
Yeah, professional would be the word. Sydney did start the second half the better, but they started winning the duels, and that's what happened with the first goal.
Bit of respite for Warren Joyce. Lafondra bowled over. O'Neill, though, continues. Chance maybe for Sydney. He's run into heavy traffic, and Ninkovic can't finish.
Yeah, it was there for him to hit. The run from Brandon O'Neill, and Ninkovic goes for pure power as well. Good determination from Brandon O'Neill. Brosk was looking for the early ball, then he gets crowded out, and then it's a decent chance for Ninkovic.
He's trying to put it in that top corner, isn't he?
Doesn't go with the inside of the boot. Well, he does, actually, and probably just got too much on it. Didn't need as much power.
7 shots for Sydney. On target. Zip. City 90 seconds away from victory. And Nazarene is here on the left. McLaren in a good position. Picked out by the substitute, Jamie McLaren. Wants that goal. Doesn't look like he's going to get it. Your record looks as though it's going to be safe, Robbie.
Well, it's not safe yet, but we don't want it to be safe, do we? God's sake, 32 years is a bit long.
Come on, Robbie. Inwardly, I know you're celebrating. Here's McLaren.
Shoot.
Still tie. Squares it up for Bratton. Nazarene. Can't get away from Grant. Gets a corner, which might just be the last action of the night. Evans wants them to get on with it. The game just really drifting towards its inevitable conclusion.
You'd have to say that it has done for quite some time. Sydney have never really looked capable of mounting a comeback.
Ball still in play, courtesy of the corner flag. Still in. Everybody thought that had gone dead. Not so. And we're now to the 5th minute of stoppage time. Everybody waiting for Sean Evans' whistle, which arrives right on cue and confirms a first win over Sydney FC since 2015-16 for Melbourne City. It's their first over them in Sydney in 4 years, and one that breaks a six-game winless sequence. No goal for Jamie McLaren tonight. No shots to save for Eugene Galekovic. Shayon Harrison did the damage at the other end with a double, although one may be taken off him.